The North American World Championship qualifier has come to a close. 3,000 duelists stepped up to participate in one interesting matchup after one of the most diverse top cuts that I think I've seen in a very long time. Make sure you guys smash the ever-living crap out of that subscribe button so you guys don't miss out more awesome content. Carlancho Store made some of the best graphics here. So, we're going to be taking a look at top 64 to start things off here. 21 Cashier players in your top 64. Am I surprised about that? No, not at all. I mean, it is the best deck in the format. We also had 12 sprite variations. Now, this is where things get fun. Of those 12 sprite variants, we had 4 for higher runic, 3 live twin runic, 1 runic sprite, 1 Gishki Sprite. Gishki Sprite actually did well. We also had 1 Sky Striker Sprite. Yeah, that's a deck we'll be looking at here. And then, of course, we had Purely and Adventure Melfi as well. Okay, that's interesting, to say the least. We also had 7 branded variants. I think that's the highest representation of branded that I've seen in forever. We also had 5 Purely decks in Top Cut. Purely actually kind of ran it back out of the course of the weekend here, putting itself back on a good placing with player base. We also had 4 Sun Avalon Rika and 4 Dragon Link as well. Now, we also get down into the 2-ofs here, which were 2 Vanquish Soul, 2 Manadium, and 2 Gold Pride, with only 2 Labyrinth. I think a lot of people were expecting Labyrinth to have this crazy representation out here, because, you know, the deck has been, like, super crazy good. I mean, for whatever reason, it just didn't perform up to standards out of this weekend. I think it's because there was a lot more Rogue in the top cut here that kind of bullied Labyrinth down a little bit. Contrary to popular belief, Labyrinth does struggle with a lot more of these Rogue matchups because they have to tailor to, you know, these other matchups. And then, of course, we had 1 super heavy Samurai Manadium, a Tier Elements duelist, and a hero player with the absolute... Watching that game was amazing. Top 32 here. We had 9 Cashier. Wow. We lost a lot of Cashier there. We're down to 4 sprite variants. We lost 8 of them. Now, the 4 sprite variations going into the top 32 here, we had 1 for hire, 1 live twin, 1 runic, and the Sky Striker pile is still sticking around in the top cut, which I still can't believe that that's a pile of cards that was working. All of our Purely players -1 managed to carry on here. So we now have 4 Purely at this stage doing their thing. Unfortunately, branded didn't quite hold its numbers together. We're down to 3 branded at this stage, which is kind of interesting. And then we have 2 Sun Avalon Rika, 2 Labyrinth. So both Labyrinth actually ended up advancing. And then we have Super Heavy Samurai Manadium, your Punk Gold Pride, your Vanquish Soul, your Hero, and your Manadium players progressing into the top 32. Now, top 16 is where things... this is where the blowouts started to happen. 9 Cashier players made their way into the top. Oh boy, that's a ride right there. Let me tell you what. We also had 3 Dragon Link. Dragon Link holding on to those numbers and advancing very, very strongly, which I actually thought was very good. At this stage, we're down to 2 sprite variations, which was 1 for hire and 1 runic. So the runic variation of the deck stuck in, and unfortunately, Purely started to fall off very, very hard at this point. We're down to 1 Purely in your top 16. And the last Sun Avalon Rika deck manages to push its way into the top 16. So, I mean, overall, like, top 16 looks fantastic. This is great. Now, this is where vested interest in the tournament starts to decline the minute we hit top 8 here, because it is, at this point in top 8, it is 6 Cashier variations, 1 Dragon Link, and 1 Purely player. And to be honest with you, I'm not all that surprised to see, you know, the trade-off across the board here, because Dragon Link can only dodge, you know, Cashier shenanigans for so long, even though the deck is incredibly strong as it is. But top 8, what a ride. And then, of course, it all goes downhill here, because top 4 is Cashier versus Cashier versus Cashier versus Cashier. Oh boy, I love watching infinite Cashier mirrors. Like, I understand, like, it is where the game is right now, but I didn't expect to see this. At least we didn't have to see this until top 8, top 4, top finals, so not too bad. And then Jeremy ended up walking away the winner here. So let's pass on over to some of those deck lists. The first list we're going to be looking at here was the point playoff for Steven. This was the Exosister list that they brought to the table to qualify for the chance to go to Worlds this year. Now, you're going to notice Herald of Abyss down here to answer purely. I have the Spirit package built into the deck for those free extensions. Do not underestimate what the Spirit package brings to this deck, because it gives this deck a whole lot of free extensions, the ability to kind of set up before committing to a summon, and it expedites the process to Martha to basically be able to continue on up and do what this deck wants to do. The amount of players that obviously we're not prepared for this in the point playoff really does show, like, the fact that you could grind this out and perform super well. And I think that's actually really cool, just to see how well that this deck can do on the, you know, the grand stage of things. It didn't make, you know, into the top cut of the weekend here, but for the point playoff, I think that this was important to showcase just to see what this deck could do. Next up is our top 64 Cashier Attack. Now, all real things have to be said here. This deck is incredibly straightforward at this point. It's been pretty much figured out, though I will say that the double Dark Hole is a little bit saucy. We did see Dark Hole kind of come up out of this weekend as a talking point for players, as people are like, wow, you know, like, Dark Hole, maybe it should be banned now. Maybe I'll make a joke video about the implications out of WCQ this weekend and the things that people were talking about. And then, of course, you see Anti-Spell Fragrance down here as well. One of the stupid best cards in modern era Yu-Gi-Oh! Right now. Denying your opponent the chance to play the game is amazing, and it's going to continue to be one of those cards that is going to stick around. It's going to be an annoyance. You're not going to be seeing any of these changes anytime soon, so I do think that that's pretty interesting overall, just to kind of see what this deck is packing. Move on along here. Yes, we actually have Maximus seeing play in Branded. I have not seen Maximus show up in forever, and you know, we're not even playing any more of the packages. No Incredible Ecclesias, no Fleur de Lises. We're pretty much just dedicating a little bit of extra value here to Maximus. And I see that we are playing the Gimmick Puppet engine in here as well, so you can go ahead, kind of drop down, do all of the little things that you need to do with this deck. And of course, I mean, Triple Fallen of Albaz. If you notice, the Lubellion package has been pretty much cut back to. We're just playing one Saronir with one Lubellion on the main deck, and then you're siding in the Triple Magna Hut as well to get into the additional searchers. No Jerusalem, which is kind of interesting in and itself. To see that we're not really dedicating any spots to that is a little bit interesting. I almost feel like we should have had a little bit extra spot removal with the Jerusalem, but okay. Next up here is our Sprite Sky Striker deck. I think this is the first time since Orcust that I've seen a variant of this deck actually kind of come out into the woodwork here, where you're using the Sky Striker package to access the armada of tools that Sky Striker has. So Widow Anchor, Afterburners, Hornet Drones for the token spawning, and then you can use whichever of these tools that you need to climb up and access other particular cards. Now, with that being said, I mean, the Sprite package is incredibly resilient. All right, you're able to access all of these different lines of play. So many different things that you can do here. And because of that, I think a lot of players are just kind of like, wow, like, you could actually make this work. Yeah, this actually worked. This is by far, I think, one of the best control variations, going second, whatever you want to call this here, with all of the control cards that you have, all the board wipes. And I think that this right here is by far one of the most innovative things of the weekend. Next up here was our Vanquish Soul deck. No, there can only be ones. Where, of course, I mean, the only trap card that we're playing in this entire deck is Eradicator Epidemic Virus, which I think is fine. Now, the thing that this deck has been getting away with was this deck gets access to a Rise Heart, which means you can set up the walking and talking Macrocosmo guy. Your opponent's going to be forced to look at that and go, what am I supposed to do about this? And unfortunately, the answer is not much, because everything else that Vanquish Soul is doing, you know, putting Kaiser Varese on the field, going into protection mode, your opponent's just going to look at that and go, what in the world am I supposed to do this? So you get the best of like both worlds here. You get access to the thing that makes Cashier a pain, and you also get access to some incredibly good power scaling as well for, you know, the card pool that you have available to you for this deck. So incredibly happy to see Vanquish Soul performing. Next up here was, well, we have Shun Ping out here actually playing Tier Elements. Now, Shu has been playing quite a lot of remote regionals. The amount of success that they have had with Tier has been absolutely amazing. And to see if this is what Tier looks like right now, or something to that effect, I think that this is fantastic. I didn't expect to see Tier perform at all, really, out of the weekend, but to be honest with you, I'm happy that we did get the chance to see this deck do well. It does indicate the players are kind of looking around at different ideas right now. And with these different ideas, you are seeing all sorts of cool things kind of come down here. And more players are, I genuinely think, very excited just to see what more that they can mess around with in terms of the deck. So yeah, this is actually very cool to see. Tier has been like one of the hopes and dreams of players because it is like the infinite toolbox generator. And then we have Gishki Sprite here. Gishki Sprite actually pulling out a top 64 here. I think it's pretty impressive. A lot of people had definitely long since forgotten about this deck's existence. And to be honest with you, if you weren't really prepared for the big Gishki ritual monster, and you were like, oh, well, like, what am I supposed to do about this, right? You forgot that, you know, the rituals can, you know, eat off of your field. I think it's very interesting. This is a pretty big change from what we're used to in a lot of the other variations out here as well. So I think it's pretty interesting. I mean, just playing one of the spells, kind of cutting things back, because you don't have the recurability that you did with the previous build, because, you know, we don't have Elf anymore. Outside of that, we are going to have a second video this afternoon. Bear with me. There are a lot more decks to talk about out of this event, and I have a couple things that were day twos, including the only Minkanko duelist out of the event. So, and we'll talk about the hero list this afternoon as well. So please leave a comment down below to what you guys think. See your beautiful faces back here the end of the day, guys. Peace out. Patrons, thank you.
Thank you so much for watching. Check out these other videos.